In the 1970s, a remarkable discovery was made at an ancient Roman cemetery near the small village of Pomerol in Belgium. Archaeologists, digging near Belgium's border with France, unearthed a skeleton that they believed had belonged to a woman who lived between the years 69 and 210, during the Gallo-Roman era. This conclusion was drawn based on the presence of a Roman bone pin found near the skull, a common accessory at the time, suggesting the individual's remains dated back to the Roman period. However, there was one odd detail: the skeleton had been buried in a fetal position, a custom not typically associated with Roman burials. Romans usually preferred a stretched-out, face-up posture for the dead, a detail that puzzled experts but was ultimately overlooked in light of the evidence pointing toward a Roman origin. Despite the unconventional burial position, the presence of the bone pin led researchers to conclude that this skeleton was indeed a single, intact body from ancient Rome. It wasn't until 2019, over 4 decades later, that radiocarbon dating tests were conducted on the skeleton, and what they revealed was truly astonishing. The tests uncovered a shocking truth: this supposed Roman skeleton was not from a single individual. In fact, it was a composite, a collection of bones taken from multiple individuals, arranged in such a way that they appeared to belong to a single person. These bones, incredibly, came from entirely different eras, making the skeleton a mysterious blend of history. A new analysis, completed by an international team of archaeologists and geneticists, has since revealed that the individual buried in this ancient cemetery in Gaul was actually constructed from the bones of 5 different people who had lived in 3 distinct time periods. These eras were separated by as much as 2,500 years. The oldest bone, the skull, was indeed from Belgium's Roman period, but other bones belonged to people from the Middle and late Neolithic periods. This revelation turned the discovery into an enigma. It raised questions about how such a composite could exist and what purpose, if any, it might have served. The skeletal remains were originally found during excavations in the 1970s at a Roman cemetery, located close to the ruins of a large Gallo-Roman settlement. This settlement had been active during the 2nd and 3rd centuries, and it was likely that the cemetery was used as a burial ground for the people who lived there. When archaeologists unearthed the remains, they found 76 cremated bodies and what they believed to be a single intact skeleton. The discovery was hailed as a significant find, as intact skeletons from the Roman period were rare, especially in a burial ground used primarily for cremations. Decades later, when genetic testing was performed in 2019 on all the remains, the results led to an unexpected twist. While the cremated bodies were indeed from the Roman era, the analysis showed that the one anomalous skeleton was not as it appeared. Only the skull matched the time period of the Roman occupation. The rest of the bones came from much older periods, which raised a profound mystery. How could bones from multiple time periods, all carefully arranged to resemble a single person, end up in the same grave? At first, no one knew what to make of these findings. The mixture of bones defied any conventional understanding of burial practices in the area. Even now, the mystery surrounding this composite skeleton endures. Who could have created this assemblage, and for what purpose? The researchers were left with only speculation and fragments of evidence as they tried to make sense of what had been unearthed. In their latest study, a team led by Professor Barbara Veselka, the head of the Osteoarchaeology Laboratory at Vrije University in Brussels, revisited the enigmatic skeleton. This new investigation was conducted as part of the Crumble Project, an initiative designed to analyze cremated bones found in Belgium from the Neolithic period through to the early medieval era, spanning from approximately 3000 BC to 700 AD. The project's scope allowed the team to delve deeper into the peculiar composition of this skeleton, which had so far resisted easy explanations. Professor Veselka and her team, equipped with the latest scientific methods, examined the skeletal remains in more detail than ever before. Their findings, published in the journal Antiquity, shed new light on this ancient puzzle. According to Veselka, a closer examination revealed that the skeleton among the cremated remains was very special. The skeleton was assembled like a puzzle, and this did not occur during or after the excavations. Her words suggested that whoever had buried the bones had intentionally arranged them in a way that created the appearance of a single, cohesive skeleton. The arrangement of the bones was not the result of haphazard handling. The skeleton had been assembled with care, each bone seemingly chosen to fit a particular form. The study identified the exact bones used in the construction, the left and right scapulae, visible from their posterior aspects, and the left and right os coxae viewed from their anteromedial aspects. It was an intricate arrangement, as though someone had intentionally constructed this composite, perhaps with a specific purpose in mind. But the question remained, why would anyone go to such lengths to assemble a skeleton in this way? In their article, the researchers proposed two possible explanations, both of which offered compelling but radically different interpretations of the events. The first theory suggested that gravediggers from the Roman era might have stumbled upon a much older burial during their work, likely unearthing Neolithic bones in the process. Not wanting to leave the remains disturbed, these gravediggers could have made an effort to Romanize the site by adding a cranium from their own time period, potentially to restore what they believed was a damaged burial. Alternatively, the study's authors put forth an even more intriguing possibility. The composite skeleton could have been a deliberate creation of the Gallo-Roman period itself, blending ancient Neolithic bones with a Roman-era cranium. In this scenario, the bones would have been combined intentionally to create a new individual, a skeletal figure that was part ancient, part contemporary, akin to a Roman version of Frankenstein. The second theory captivated the researchers and readers alike, as it suggested a macabre and symbolic ritual and intentional merging of individuals from different eras to create a composite figure. If this theory were true, it would mean that the skeleton was assembled during the Gallo-Roman period, combining the skull from a recently deceased Roman with the bones of people who had lived in the distant Neolithic past. This idea, if proven, would represent the first known instance of a Roman grave containing a constructed individual, pieced together from various time periods. The researchers theorized that such a burial might have been created for spiritual or ritualistic purposes, though exactly what those purposes were remains unknown. This notion, however, was difficult to confirm, as no other burials of this kind have been discovered from the Roman period or even earlier. The uniqueness of this skeleton makes it an enigma, a singular piece of evidence that defies easy classification, and leaves historians and archaeologists with more questions than answers. Despite the allure of the second theory, the researchers leaned toward the first explanation as the most plausible. They argued that the skeleton's fetal positioning was common in Neolithic burials, not in Roman customs, which could indicate that the burial was originally Neolithic. The Romans, upon stumbling upon the burial site and disturbing it accidentally, might have tried to restore the skeleton by adding a skull from their era. Perhaps they intended to show respect to the dead or to avoid angering spirits they believed might linger at the site. The researchers speculated that in repairing the burial, the Romans might have added the skull as a way of ensuring the individual's completeness in the afterlife. This act could have been motivated by metaphysical beliefs about the integrity of the body in the next world, a common theme in many ancient cultures. As Veselka and her colleagues noted, the Romans may have believed that any disturbance to a burial needed to be rectified to preserve the soul's journey. Ultimately, however, these theories remain speculative, as no written records or additional evidence exist to confirm either scenario. Without further clues, the mysterious composite skeleton will likely remain an anomaly in archaeological history, a testament to the complexities of ancient beliefs and practices. The mystery surrounding the composite skeleton continued to intrigue the scientific community, as Professor Veselka and her team pondered how such an unusual burial could have come to be. In their report, they highlighted that the Romans, known for their structured burial practices and respect for the dead, might have felt compelled to honor this disrupted grave in a way that made sense within their own cultural framework. The burial in the fetal position, a posture commonly associated with Neolithic rituals, would have stood out as unusual to the Romans. Yet, they might have taken steps to carefully place a skull from their own time period into the burial as a symbolic gesture. The addition of the Roman bone pin, found near the skull, further indicated that someone deliberately tried to make the grave conform to Roman customs, creating an individual that was both ancient and, in a way, current to their time. The study noted that this composite figure could have been viewed as a reassembled whole, ensuring the deceased had what they needed to enter the afterlife. In an interview with the Brussels Times, Professor Veselka reflected on the possibility that the Romans believed in the importance of bodily completeness for the dead. She explained that in Roman beliefs, a soul might not rest in peace if its body were damaged or incomplete. If a burial was disturbed, those who discovered it could have felt obligated to repair what they believed to be a broken vessel, making it whole again in hopes of aiding the soul's passage. This interpretation added a new layer of complexity to the discovery, suggesting that even centuries apart, different societies shared a reverence for the dead. Still, without conclusive evidence, these interpretations remain hypothetical. In their analysis, Veselka and her team underscored that while the first theory that the Romans sought to repair a Neolithic grave was more likely, they couldn't entirely rule out the second, more dramatic scenario. This was the notion that someone in the Gallo-Roman period had deliberately constructed the composite figure, perhaps as part of an elaborate ritual or symbolic act. The second scenario, though less likely, fascinated researchers because of its implications. If someone in the Gallo-Roman period had intentionally assembled this Frankenstein skeleton by blending ancient bones with a contemporary Roman skull, it would indicate a unique ritualistic practice. Perhaps, they speculated, the combination of bones from vastly different time periods could have been meant to represent a fusion of eras, binding the community to its deep past or invoking spirits of ancient ancestors. Such a burial, if intentionally assembled, would suggest an extraordinary belief system in which the dead could be honored, or even empowered, through the merging of bodies. In their study, the researchers observed that, to their knowledge, no other Roman grave has ever been discovered with this type of composite structure. This unprecedented arrangement could hint at specific local beliefs in Pomerol, or perhaps at unique burial customs practiced within a particular Gallo-Roman community. In their article published in Antiquity, Veselka and her team pointed out that the Gallo-Roman era was a period of cultural fusion. The Romans often absorbed and adapted customs from the lands they conquered, blending their practices with local traditions. This mixing of cultures might have contributed to the creation of such an unconventional burial, where Neolithic and Roman elements were interwoven. Still, while this theory captivated many, the absence of further examples made it difficult to support definitively. With these theories in mind, the researchers concluded that the most likely scenario was the first. The Romans had accidentally discovered a much older Neolithic burial and, in their attempt to respect and restore it, had added a Roman skull and bone pin. The positioning of the bones in a fetal posture further suggested the original grave had followed Neolithic customs, lending support to this theory. To the Romans, this burial, once disturbed, might have seemed incomplete, and adding a skull from their time may have been an effort to complete the body for the afterlife, as they understood it. The final assessment emphasized that while both theories held merit, the burial's positioning and the cultural blending of the Gallo-Roman period made the idea of a respectful restoration more plausible. As the research team wrapped up their findings, they acknowledged that the composite skeleton remained an enigma, an artifact that would likely retain its secrets. The Crumble project, dedicated to studying cremated bones from Belgium's long history, had allowed Veselka and her colleagues to dive deep into the mysteries of ancient burial practices. Yet, even with the advanced techniques and genetic testing available today, the precise story behind this burial arrangement continued to elude them. In an effort to explore all possibilities, the researchers examined each bone and its origin more closely. They noted that the skull, dating to the Roman era, was indeed the most recent part of the composite. The other bones, the scapulae and os coxae, came from individuals who had lived thousands of years earlier during the Neolithic period. The fact that these bones had been chosen and arranged carefully, rather than randomly scattered, suggested a deliberate action by those who had encountered them. The Crumble project, which has been examining cremated remains from Belgium covering the Neolithic to the early medieval period, offered insights into how burial practices evolved across millennia. However, no other site they studied presented a composite skeleton like this one, reinforcing the idea that this burial was a unique case, perhaps due to a specific incident or cultural practice in the area. Without written records or other archaeological evidence indicating a broader practice of composite burials, the team recognized that this skeleton might be an isolated event. To this day, the skeleton discovered in Pomerol stands as a testament to the mystery of ancient beliefs about death and the afterlife. While most Gallo-Roman burials adhered to traditional customs, this composite arrangement challenged expectations, hinting at the lengths to which some might go to preserve respect for the dead, even if it meant merging bones from different eras. In the end, as Veselka and her colleagues concluded in their report, this skeleton would likely remain a true anomaly, offering tantalizing glimpses into ancient lives and beliefs, but never revealing its full story. The Pomerol skeleton, a blend of past and present, remains a silent witness to a mystery that may never be completely understood.